Hello and welcome to this week's Look Round the Garden.
My new meadow flower garden is continuing to grow very nicely. I am running into problems with rabbit and deer, and it's been so wet the slugs are starting to move in, but such is the life of a gardener, constantly battling everything else that wants to damage your plants. Now over at the end there we have the sunflowers. Not very tall, and that is the plan. I planted quite a few sunflower seeds this year of different sunflower varieties, but what I'm predominantly after are these short sunflowers with big heads. This is the only one I've managed to get to grow that has the enormous sunflower head. I'd say it's about 4 foot tall. I don't know why it's facing that way, because I'm on the south side of the plant. I would have expected its flower to face out this way, but it's doing what it's doing. What I really want this for this year is its seeds, so I can hopefully grow lots more of them next year. It's got a really thick, strong stem, which helps it hold up against those gales we've been having. I have had a few that have toppled over. Although this one looks like a short sunflower, it's meant to be about 6 foot tall, but it's been hammered with the gales and fallen over. Still flowering though, lovely dark chocolatey red. This one has a particularly pretty flower with these little hints of chocolate on it. It's maybe only about 2 foot tall. I'm sure it should be taller. It's probably been having a rough time for some reason. Here's that big head of my 4 foot sunflower. Nice. I do have another very short stocky sunflower, maybe 18 inches tall at the moment, but it's got that thick, heavy, short, stocky shape to it. The leaves are packed together very closely, and it's already developing the beginnings of the flower head. So hopefully if we get enough summer left, this should be a good candidate for seed saving. This bed I put some plants in the other day with the grandchildren to get it started off. I've also put that hill of freshly mown grass around it that's dying off now a couple days later. And here, centre of shot, is what was going to be a beautiful gladioli. But something, deer, I'm pretty certain, have been eating off the flowers. Excuse my muddy gardening fingers. I've been pulling up the occasional weed. This was going to be a beautiful gladioli flower. Another one here and down there. Not happy. There's nothing I can do about it now. Something's been through here on a flower picnic. This was absolutely covered in orange flowers and buds the other day. Everything but that one gone. The plant's still thriving and alive. Just had all its flowers nibbled off. Feels like I'm growing a deer salad. I would say rabbit, but they're not tall enough to eat the gladioli. And here's another one that's had all its flower stalks munched off. This is a Veronica. Supposed to be deer and rabbit resistant. They're not eating the plant, just its flowers. The flowers are the bit I want. They didn't touch this mallow plant though, and it's recovered very nicely from its transplant. When I thought it was going to die, it had gone so wilty and limp. Definitely have to take a closer look at the dahlias while they're looking so gorgeous. I'm hoping to overwinter these in the ground, which is a bit risky to be honest. When they die back in the autumn, I shall cut all the stems short and put a thick layer of grassy mulch on this. Hopefully give it a little bit more insulation for the winter. And fingers crossed, something might make it into next year. Here in the top corner of the meadow garden, there is a Merryweather damson. This year in particular, it is heavy with damsons. I've been watching it for a few weeks, and although they look beautiful, they've been bullet hard. And today, for the first time, oh, the sun's gone. I finally have a little bit of give in the flesh. So beautiful, sweet, plummy fruits once they ripen. I'm going to harvest most of these today. They're just starting to ripen. If I leave them on the tree, in a couple of days, they'll all be gone. The birds will notice them and that'll be it. I'm sure they'll have been checking, just like me, coming back every day just to see if they're ready yet. And as soon as they are, they'll eat them. So this year, I shall beat them to it and harvest these today. Wonderful, bountiful harvest of damsons, saved from the birds. Yay! Whilst harvesting all those delicious damsons, I notice at the base of my damson tree I have a side shoot coming up from the ground. Now this damson, as with an awful lot of our fruit trees, has been grafted onto different rootstock. So the roots of this tree are not the original roots of the damson fruiting part we want. So here's a knobbly bobbly bit of trunk, and everything down here is the rootstock, and everything above it is our fruiting tree. So I'm going to cut this new growth away as close to the tree as I can. And I notice there's also a tiny little green shoot here. So I'm just going to rub that off while I'm here as well and check for any more. Having just harvested a wonderful tray of damsons from the damson tree reminds me that I have a bag of cherry plum seeds to be planted. Now when I was harvesting the cherry plums from that red cherry plum tree a few weeks ago, I kept and collected all of the stones and pits from the fruits I was eating, in the hope of growing some more red cherry plum trees. So I've got myself 2 large pots. They're not enormous, but they're big. I don't know, maybe 12 inches across, that I've filled with garden soil. Now I've chosen garden soil rather than compost because I want this slightly heavier, denser texture for these seeds to germinate into. So with my 2 pots of garden soil, I'll do it this way. I'm going to take about 1.5 inches, 2 inches off the top. There. And I'm planting my seeds very densely. I'm not expecting them all to germinate. So these are all my cherry plum seeds. I just ate the cherry plums and spat out the stones. And I'm going to put lots in these 2 pots. Spread them out a little bit. And then pop the scooped out soil back on top. Gosh, gust of wind just blew you over. Now I've planted up both my large pots with lots and lots of cherry plum stones, and I'm going to put these pots in a tray of water for the summer to keep them nice and moist. I don't want this soil drying out. It's quite dry at the moment. I'm going to get it nice and moist and damp and keep it that way. When our temperatures start cooling off in autumn, I'll get them out of that watering tray. I don't want them sitting in standing water all winter long. I am going to keep them outdoors, both now and throughout the winter. And hopefully late next spring we should see the signs of at least a few cherry plum trees sprouting in these pots. Fingers crossed. Now I've planted an awful lot of stones. Maybe I'll have a grassy lawn of cherry plum trees. But I'll be perfectly happy if just one or two germinate. If I don't plant them, they're definitely never going to germinate. So I'm going to get these in their watering tray, give them a label so I know what these pots are, and leave them sitting there till the weather turns cool. The pumpkin and squash patch behind me has been doing wonderfully. Most of the time I think it's been enjoying this warm, wet weather. I have noticed we've got powdery mildew starting on the plants at the far end because it's been so wet. A quick spray down with a 50-50 mix of milk and water should help bring that back under control. In the pumpkin patch behind me, I've got Crown Prince, one large pink banana, some curry. There should have been some butternut, but I've not seen any sign of them yet. So maybe they didn't make it from seed sowing to planting out. There's lots of delicata squash, which is great because that was my intention this year. They're a nice small one-person size portion of a squash, very sweet flesh inside. Let's take a closer look and see if we can find some fruits to show you. So far I've only noticed one pink banana fruit. It's a very big squash, so I'll be quite happy to only get one. But here is pink banana. Oh, and here's my hand for scale. Where is it? There. One pink banana. Crown Prince is doing well. I'm aware of at least 3 big squash on this plant. Where are we going? There. So this is going to have a bluey coloured outer shell and the standard bright orange butternutty middle. I planted quite a few seeds of delicata squash this year because I like the delicata squash fruits. This is a full size for this one, so it's a perfect one-person size portion, and there are lots of them about. And in here we have some curry squash. Can I get my hand in for scale? There we go. Pretty standard curry. And there's another one over here.
Here is a nice dark green acorn squash. There are quite a few around the pumpkin patch. Another nice one portion sized squash. This speckledy green squash is not one I recognise, so suspect it has come from one of my own harvested cross-pollinated seeds. I don't know which 2 varieties of squash crossed to make it, but I love its speckledy outer skin. And here I have a yellow one with that same speckledy outer skin. It's slightly smaller than the green one, but this one's yellow, not green. It's not a case of ripeness. This one started yellow and the green one started green. Hasn't changed colour yet, and I suspect it probably won't. Searching through the pumpkin patch, I've come across this most peculiar delicata. The beginning of its stem, where it first leaves the plant, looks perfectly normal. But as I follow further down the stem towards the growing tip, it gets bigger and fatter, It's actually lots of stems all conjoined together. As it continues to grow, this conjoined stem seems to get wider and wider. Here we've got lots of leaves, flower stalks and fruits, all sprouting out of the same area of stem. It looks most peculiar. Lots and lots of delicata fruits though. I see no reason why they shouldn't mature and develop like normal. Just all clustered together in a tight bunch, a bit like you might get on a courgette plant. And finally, here's what should be the spindly growing tip of this stem. We've got a big tangled knot of leaves, flowers and fruits, all growing out of this fat chunk. It's a most unusual thing. I'm used to the occasional tomato flower fusing together to give a big fat knobbly bobbly tomato fruit. I can't recall any of my pumpkin vines doing it before though. It's just very odd. Be interesting to see how it carries on. It seems to be getting fatter and fatter as it grows along the length of its stem, rather than thinner and thinner towards the tip.
It's a little bit warm to be in the polytunnel at the moment because the sun's shining for the first time in weeks. But I just had to show off these pineapple lilies while they're in full flower and looking their most splendid. I'm hoping to transfer a couple of the purpley ones out into the new flowering meadow. So in autumn this year, when they've died back, I shall dig up a couple of their bulbs, store them in a pot over the winter and plant them out into the meadow for next summer. Now, whether they will survive outdoors in the UK winter, I don't know, which is why I'm only going to take a couple of them. But I think they should. At the moment, I'm in the process of planting lots of things out there. I'm just going to keep planting. If they survive, fantastic. And if they die, well, it's a shame, but at least I tried. These purple ones keep expanding and spreading. I have more than I planted originally. I have two of this big white fat one here and one there, and they never seem to spread. I only ever get two coming up each year. Well, I set myself up, sat outside the polytunnel because it's far too hot in there, and now the skies have clouded over. Actually feels a little threatening, like it might start to rain. I didn't film anything last week because there really wasn't much of anything changing. Things are still growing wonderfully, and we couldn't go outside. It keeps raining. It rained through all of July, and now we're running into August. It still keeps raining. Having said that, we've had a very nice morning today, even if it does look like it's going to rain now. The cucumbers are still producing prolifically. I've actually been cutting off the little tiny cucumber starts so the plant can have a rest and stop growing quite so many. I've got 7 today, and I've had a few last week, and I think I was harvesting cucumbers in my previous video. I picked myself a sweet corn, just the one, because that's all I plan to eat is one at the moment. Looks beautiful though. Looking forward to that. And I have my basket of plums. I've had a handful of strawberries today, a couple of blackberries, some black currants, munching my way around the garden. So I'm going to say goodbye for today. So bye for now, and remember, whatever you're doing, have fun doing it.